Okay, so this is a video about my 2013 Aprilia Mana 850 GT, a bike that I bought brand new recently. And this video is to talk about some of the unique things about the Aprilia Mana 850 GT, and also about how to do a fender chop, a rear fender chop on the Aprilia, a homemade job, without having to purchase any special parts. So there's definitely some really unique things about the Aprilia Mana that's very unique to this bike. Most importantly, this bike does not have a clutch. There is no clutch handle on this bike because it has a fully electronic 7-speed CVT transmission. The bike is designed so that you can either put it in fully automatic mode and it'll automatically shift itself between gears, and it'll do so very flawlessly. Or you can go and use the electronic paddle shifters, the racing shifters, and go ahead and shift it yourself if you want to go that route. That's a very unique thing about this bike. The bike features a 850cc V-twin, fuel injected, puts out just under 80 horsepower, and it also has fully anti-lock brakes as well. The bike has a really nice suspension, and it holds the road really well and goes exactly where I want it to go. The bike is also unique because if you look here, you normally would think that this is the fuel tank, but actually if you press a button over here, the bike has a storage compartment in here. The storage compartment is rounded off so that you can actually go ahead and put a helmet in here. You also have a power adapter in here to power some 12-volt accessories and even charge your phone up if you want. There's also a light in here too that's helpful sometimes at night. So yeah, there's a number of really unique things about this bike. It's a really easy bike to ride and has plenty of power to have fun with it. The bike also has a adjustable shock too. It comes standard with that. That's what this knob here is for. And I can just go ahead and manually adjust the shock if there's two riders instead of just one. Really easy process on this bike. So that's what's unique about the Aprilia Mana. From there, let's go ahead and talk about this fender chop. So one thing that I wasn't too happy about on this bike is that from the factory, this bike has a fairly large fender that comes down quite a bit and overhangs about half the rear tire. That wasn't too attractive looking. On some of the other racing Aprilia bikes, they have it fully exposed, and that's a lot meaner looking design, which is something that you can really easily achieve on the Aprilia Mana just simply by chopping the fender. One thing that you need to keep in mind though, if you want to chop the fender on your Aprilia Mana, is that there is a keyway down here. This keyway, if you install your key, will pop this rear seat. The gas tank, as you now know, is not up there. It's actually down under here, and there's about a 4.5-5 gallon tank under there. And if you go ahead and pop the key here, it'll make this lid, it'll make the seat here pop up, and then your filler cap is right there. Now, what I've seen some other riders do is they chop this fender all the way back, and they'll put like a license plate here that maybe has like a hinge or something so the license plate can flip up so you can use the keyway. I've also seen some other riders on YouTube simply go ahead and take the keyway out altogether, and thus the seat, you know, can come up. They sometimes use like magnets or something like that so the seat will stay down, but it's no longer locked. I personally didn't like that. I didn't like any of the aftermarket license plate kits like the tail tidies or Fender Eliminator that some of the other guys were using. Certainly those tail tidies and fender eliminators are good for other bikes, but I just wasn't quite feeling it for this bike, and so I decided to custom make one myself using the parts that were already on the bike. So I'm going to talk to you guys exactly how I did this. What I did here is I went ahead and disconnected the harness for the license plate light. I went ahead and pulled that out and got that off the fender. I went ahead and unbolted the left and right turn signals and just let them dangle. I didn't fully disconnect them, but just unbolted them so that way I can move them out of the way. From there, I went ahead and put a mark on the fender, and I went ahead and created a mark that was perfectly straight and level. because what I intended to do was actually epoxy the license plate bracket right to the plastic flat face of the fender where I was going to make my cut. That's the overall intent here. So it's very, very important, if you want to do it this way, that you go ahead and make sure your cut is absolutely level and also straight. So I went ahead and marked it, and once I was confident that I had a good straight mark on my fender, I went ahead and took my Milwaukee skill saw here. I went ahead and marked the I went ahead and adjusted the pitch on my skill saw. It was like about 12-13 degrees there, and all I did was when I was ready, I went ahead and engaged my saw and just chopped it right off. It was really, really easy to chop through the plastic, and then I just cleaned all the burrs off, and then I had a nice clean cut. This is the piece that I cut off. That's most of the fender there. I gotta tell you, I'm really, really happy that I took that off, because that was definitely an eyesore before. This up here, this is where the license plate light used to be. Down underneath it is where the license plate used to be bracketed on. Now, after I chopped this off, I went ahead and removed the license plate, the square license plate holder from the fender here, and I went ahead and made use of the plastic license plate holder. From there, I went ahead and epoxied the plastic license plate holder to this cut mark, and I also used a heavy nylon tie to hold it to there as well, but mainly it's being held on by the epoxy. I went ahead and reinstalled the lights, and that's the finished product that you can see there. Now, I didn't have to purchase any parts to do this at all. I just used the parts that were already available on the bike. Just used about $1 worth of epoxy, and that's the finished result there. It took me approximately an hour to accomplish that job. Now, some other riders there might want to improve upon this approach. You could certainly purchase like a nice lit license plate frame, something with LEDs on it or something like that, and you could attach that onto here as well, and then use the wiring harness that used to be for the license plate light to use that to power the LEDs. That might be an option for you if you want to improve upon this. Now, my personal feeling is that the running light for the brake, the running lights can always be on. That seems to do a pretty decent job illuminating this license plate anyway, so I'm probably not going to do that myself. So yeah, I'd say overall that turned out really, really well. It just took some time and some planning here to make sure that I got a nice straight cut. That's the key here. And then if you look back here, I got a nice mean looking rear end on this bike now, and it's nice and open now, and it looks a whole lot nicer. And so anyway, I hope that information is helpful. If you guys have any questions about how to do this yourself, you're welcome to email me via YouTube. And anyway, that's how I chopped the fender on my 2013 Aprilia Mana.